Hello, and welcome to episode number 23 of the Rabe Creations podcast. My name's Nicole, and I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, here in Canada, where I live with my husband, Barry, and my beautiful, wonderful, rescued Rottweiler named Grace. So, this podcast deals primarily with crochet, but with a good smattering of cross-stitch and sewing thrown in there for good measure. So if that sounds like something that you'd enjoy, come spend some time with me. I'd like to welcome back all of my returning viewers. It's so great to see you, although I'm not really seeing you, but it's so great to spend some time with you again. And for all of the new subscribers who have come on board lately, welcome. I'm so glad that you found something you liked enough to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. I look forward to spending time with you on about a bi-weekly basis. So, what's been going on? Well, it's gotten much nicer out. We actually hit the positives today. So we had temperatures of +3 today. So if you hear a strange thumping sound, it's actually the ice melting off the roof. We are at 3 degrees today, which is about 37 degrees Fahrenheit for all of those who know Fahrenheit and not Celsius. I had to look that up, by the way. Let me see, what else? Well, even though it's 3 degrees out today, we are expecting a fairly major dump of snow later on this week because that's spring in Calgary. Spring snow can actually be quite scary for us. It tends to be not the light fluffy snowflakes that you see falling in the pictures around holiday time. No, this is heavy, wet, almost slush falling from the sky, and it can shut us down. It can shut down the city. So let's cross our fingers that it's not quite that big of a dump of snow, but it definitely feels like spring is on the way. So that being said, it's been a little bit odd. I've had a little bit of startitis going on, and I like to blame it on the weather. Spring has started to spring. I can't say it's sprung yet because it isn't. We've still got a foot of snow out there, but you feel it in the air. And that's kind of inspired me to start some new projects, as well as the fact that my birthday was last month. If you watch this podcast, you know that. But from my family's perspective, March is our birthday heavy month. I have, 3 boy birthdays and 2 girl birthdays all in the month of March. So we celebrate them all together on one day. It makes it easier that way. And this year we're celebrating on St. Patrick's Day on the 17th. So I got some work to do. I've got some presents to be making. I have finished one of them, and I'll be showing that to you today. I have another one that is on the hook, and hopefully it'll be done. And possibility of one more, but that may be pushing it a bit. So we'll see how it goes. All right. I guess that's it. That's it for my rambly introduction today. And let's get straight into some finished projects. Now, for the only finished crochet project I'm going to show you, like I said, I've had a bit of startitis. The only finished crochet project I'm going to show you today is an amigurumi, and it was a special request from my niece. I have hooked it up for her birthday. My niece is not a little girl. She is in her 30s. And I actually contemplated not showing this on the podcast because I didn't want to start any strange debates or dialogues. Now I bet you're really curious as to what the heck I've hooked up. So I live in Canada. Cannabis is legal now, so there should be no judgment. And if there is any judgment, please, by all means, we don't need to discuss it here. Take it for what it is. It is a request from my niece. So, any of you who are children of the 80s or who potentially had children in the 80s, like me, actually my children were in the 90s, but if you remember the 80s at all, you remember Care Bears. they were a big deal. So my niece forwarded me a picture, and she said, you know, Auntie Nikki, I would really, really love if you could make me one of these. And it is called a Don't Care Bear. So I sort of looked up a few pictures, you know, did a little bit of research to see what it looked like, and realized that there was nothing out there that really spoke to me, that I really wanted to do. So I hit Etsy, and I found a vintage Care Bears crochet pattern from the 80s, and I purchased it. So it came, obviously it doesn't have a Don't Care Bear in it, but it does have all the different Care Bears and all of their tummy symbols and everything else. So I based my Don't Care Bear on the actual vintage crochet pattern, and then ad-libbed with a few additions of my own. So starting out from behind, because every Care Bear did have a heart on its hip. So I did the heart on the Care Bear's hip. And this is the Don't Care Bear. Like I said, no judgments here. It was a fun amigurumi to hook up. And obviously, I could make Care Bears that weren't Don't Care Bears using this pattern. The changes that I made to the pattern, I did some modifications to the ears, as well as, what else did I really have to, oh, the thumbs. I would say that the techniques of amigurumi have improved significantly since this pattern was first created. And there are just better ways to do things than they were doing that in the pattern. So I did some ad-libbing of both the thumbs and the ears, and made them more to my liking. Also, the pattern does not have hooded sleepy eyes. I added those. The little heart that is his nose and on his hip is actually a video or a YouTube tutorial by, HappyBerryCrochet. So if you wanted to find the crochet tutorial for the little hearts, which is an incredibly simple little applique to make, and once you make one, you could just make more and more and more because they're that easy. So that's HappyBerryCrochet, did the tutorial for the little hearts. And the cannabis leaf was another YouTube tutorial, and I found that it is by, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, I am so sorry, NingSiri Crochet. It is a fairly large crochet channel. I believe there's 80,000 subscribers to this channel. It's out of Thailand, so a lot of the videos are not in English, but she has taken some and translated them to English, mostly through subtitles. Some of the translations are a little rough, but you know what? You can follow along between the visual and the translations and sort of follow along and do it, and I think it turned out very well. So there he is. My Don't Care Bear. No judgments here. So that is my one and only finished crochet project for this week's podcast. Because as I said, startitis, people, startitis. So from a, let me see. All right. I guess we can move straight into works in progress. This is the big section of today's podcast. I do have a lot going on. I've been doing a lot of cross-crafting, cross-training in the crafting world. And mainly that is because of this. As you can see, I am sporting a beautiful wrist brace. I have a tendon issue going on right now. Obviously, if you've watched this podcast, I believe I spoke about my knee and the issues I have with my knee. I actually have issues with my tendons in general. So this is a newer injury that seems to be rearing its ugly head and actually affected me quite deeply when it started because I've always been a very active person, and with my knee falling apart, it's to the point where it's completely blown out. I've had to stop doing most of the sports and even just leisure activities that I used to do. So I really turned heavily to my crafting, to my crocheting especially, and it really filled a niche for me. Anybody who lives in chronic pain, as I do, knows that there can be an element of depression that goes along with being a chronic pain sufferer. And my go-to for relieving depression is not the healthiest go-to, and it involves food and eating. I love food. I love eating. However, the more debilitated I get because of my knee, the less I can exercise, the more excess food I probably should not consume, as I am finding out now. So I turned to crochet, something that kept my hands busy, kept my mind busy, kept me engaged. So when my wrists started to go and my thumbs started to go, it was a pretty dark time. I had some very dark moments of, you know, what am I supposed to do? I can't move, I can't crochet, I can't do any of the things I love, and it's a tough thing to come to grips with. So I got the brace, I took a deep breath, and I figured, you know what? I just need to do some cross crafting. So I call it my cross training, my CrossFit training. My kids laugh at me. So I am bouncing now between crochet, cross stitch, and sewing. And I rotate those three crafts almost on a daily basis. That's allowed me to rest my thumb. I cannot crochet with my brace on, so when I crochet, I have to take the brace off. But other than that, I'm using it almost all the time. I sleep with it on, and it is doing amazingly good things for that tendon. So that being said, however, that was a very rambly way to get to my works in progress. So I have a lot of works in progress from the different crafting genres that I'm doing now, because now that I'm doing regularly 3 different types of crafts, I have at least 3 things on the go at all times. So here we go. From the crochet front, I have found an amazing pattern. If you haven't stumbled across this yet, I suggest you go check it out. It is the Sheldon Squared Square, and it's by the Crochet Crowd. It is a free pattern available through the Crochet Crowd. That's how I found it. I am subscribed to the Crochet Crowd, so the tutorials pop up for me. I really don't think that you need the tutorial to be able to do this, but if you like working from tutorials, Mikey from the Crochet Crowd definitely does have a tutorial out for this one. And it's the Sheldon Squared Square, and it was designed by Laura Jean Bartholomew. I am making my sister, one of the birthdays in March, a blanket. And I'm making it out of, I'm sorry, something just fell. My crochet hook. I am making it out of a impeccable yarn in 2 different colors. It is, sorry, let me see here. Soft Rose, which is the pink color, and then Aran, which is this sort of off-white. This is what one finished square looks like. This hasn't been blocked, but they're massive. I love this. I actually really enjoy making granny squares and granny square blankets. I enjoy making the granny square part. The sewing together of the granny square part can be very time consuming and very tedious and leave you with a million ends to weave in. And yeah, it's my least favorite part of the granny square process. So when I saw how big these squares were, I knew that I would love this. So the square itself has lots of popcorn stitch detailing, which is nice, as well as some visual breaks with some filet crochet. Yeah, I really love this. The size of these granny squares, I'm only going to need 9 of them to complete a good-sized throw blanket for my sister. So each square does take about a full ball of impeccable yarn. So it's not that it's I wouldn't describe it as a yarn eater. like the crocodile stitch or anything like that. But it does take a lot of yarn per square. But really, when you think about it, 9 balls of yarn for a full-size throw blanket isn't all that much, in my opinion. Now, the popcorns do take a little bit more yarn up than potentially just doing, you know, straight double crochets. But hey, I still think it's wonderful to only have to attach together 9 of these squares. So I have completed 2 of the squares, and I am working on the 3rd. The blanket will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pink and 4 Aran colored squares. This is the very center of the 3rd square that I am currently hooking on. So as I said, it is all done in impeccable yarn and on a 5.5 millimeter hook. I will definitely take pictures. I will probably be given away before I record the next podcast, but I'll take some pictures to be able to show you what the finished project ended up looking like. I'm also very interested in taking this middle section. Actually, it has one more row that has a single popcorn in the middle so that it makes a popcorn triangle. I'm very interested in taking this in a fingering weight yarn and doing up squares and seeing what they turn out like, seeing if I could do up a blanket in fingering weight, so a scrappy type squares in fingering weight, using this pattern, because I just really love the texture of the popcorns. So that is the first project that I am currently working on. Sorry. That is the first project that I am currently working on. And I will move on to the next project. All right. So the next crochet project that I have on the hook that I'd like to show to you, is a new design that I'm working on. So if you watched last, not the cow winner podcast, but the actual podcast before that, episode number, what is this one? 23, episode number 22. If you watched episode number 22, you know that I am in the process of designing a project, a poncho called the Ghost River Fade Poncho. I have figured out the largest sizing, and now I'm just working out the maths for the smaller sizing. And, well, maths and I are not the best of friends, so I've hit a frustration level with that one, so I decided to put it aside for a little while, just a couple of days, just time to think about something else, because I was getting frustrated. And rather than get frustrated and angry, I moved on to something else. And I will go back to the poncho in a week or so. I just need some time. We need some time apart. So I was motivated to try another project and to get another one of my designs out there. So I do like to use reusable bags. And especially when I hit the markets in summer, because we have a lot of great farmers markets. I did talk about them last year when I was going to the farmers markets, especially the Millerville market. If you're ever in this area and you ever get the opportunity to hit the Millerville farmers market, you got to go. It's amazing. But anyway, I've gone there for years. We go every weekend. We buy all of our fresh produce there. And I like to bring reusable bags. So I started making my own, hooking up my own reusable bags, following various tutorials that I found and whatnot. I was a pattern tester for somebody, so I've got a bag from that pattern test as well. So I decided to make one myself and design a market bag. So it's going to be called the DRC market bag, the Rabe Creations market bag. And it's based on the humble granny square, because I don't know, I had a thing going for granny squares. So, oops, sorry about that. Again, dropped a hook. So this project is being worked up with Karen Handicrafter Cotton. Sorry, Debbie at the Canadian Crocheter. It's your least favorite yarn, I know that. But it's worked up in the Handicrafter Cotton. I like using it because it's a nice thick cotton. It can be hard on your hands, but I like using it for things like this. It's washable. Yeah, and it stretches a little bit, but that's a good thing, because when you're filling up a bag at market, you want it to be able to stretch to hold all that wonderful produce. So this is the beginning of my bag. It is a bucket style bag, so it's a bucket shaped. It's not a tote bag style. It's a bucket style. In other words, the base is started out by a square. You guessed it, the granny square. So let me show you. I'm just going to pull up enough of a loop that I don't lose my stitches. So I should say that it is being worked on a 4.25 millimeter needle, and this is the center. So the bottom, that is the granny that it is all based on. Just a very simple granny square. It's a fairly tight granny square, because of course you don't want things falling out the bottom. And you could always do a fabric lining for this bag. I might offer both options. And then as you move up, it starts out in a nice half double crochet as it moves up. And then it moves into a panel of granny stitches. And then it's going to go have another half double crochet segment. So it'll be stripes of granny stitching and half double crochet until it reaches the top. And then it'll have, I believe, 2 straps, but it may just have 1 strap. I'll have to see when I get there and see what works out best. But I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out. And as you can see, I'm just sort of using up bits and pieces of yarn to design the prototype. It can be done in any color and in multitudes of colors. So sometimes what's kind of nice is to just sort of be collecting all of your scraps together. And these make great scrap busting projects. So I'm hoping to have a release date of the beginning of May for this bag. Yes, beginning of May, which will be perfect timing for the markets that open up in my neck of the woods anyway. So that is one of my newest projects, newest designs. And I'm again going to be putting out the plea for testers on that one as well. So let me see, moving along to another work in progress, and this is a cross stitch piece. So I did show this on the last podcast as a beginning work in progress, and I challenged people to recognize where the reference for this piece is coming from, and happy to say a lot of people got it, and it is right here. So I am stitching this up for my son, my youngest son, Riley, who used to do the editing, my video editing, that has now been taken over by my husband, but who used to do my video editing for me, is a big fan of movies in general, but he especially likes sort of the B movies and the 80s horror movies and that sort of thing. So this is going to be right up his alley. So it says, "Welcome to Camp Crystal Lake." All of the lettering, so all of the words are now stitched with some obligatory blood splatter, of course. And I have moved on to the picture at the bottom, which is sort of a scene of, you know, trees and the lake itself. This picture, the design, I found it on Etsy by a designer called Witchy Stitch, I believe it is, on Etsy. I will link all of the links. I will link all of the links. Professional podcast going on here. I will link all of the links below if you wanted to go check it out. She has a lot of very different cross-stitch patterns. So none of your typical flowers and pretty things. It's lots of, you know, horror reference and that sort of thing. So, you know, not everybody's cup of tea, but I thought it was hysterical when I saw it, you know, just to have the campiness of the movie and, you know, a cross stitch of that. I just loved it. It just spoke to me. And I know my son will think it's just a hoot as well. So that is where I'm at on that. So it is being done on 14 count Aida cloth in just DMC floss. So no special flosses, no special cloth, anything like that. And it's hooking up quite nicely. I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out. And now that I have, you know, jumped down the cross stitch rabbit hole, I have found a plethora of podcasts that I am now watching. They call themselves floss tubes. Oh yes. So there is a whole world out there of cross stitchers also on YouTube. So my personal subscription box is exploding because I have found a whole bunch of new podcasts to watch while I craft away. So those are the 3 projects that I'm working on that I thought I would share with you. As you can see, I'm sort of switching back and forth. I do have other projects on the go, but we'd be here all day. So those are the 3 that I think have received the most love, the most work, besides, of course, the finished Don't Care Bear that I showed earlier. So let me see, moving right along, and let's get into... I have to turn the page in my show notes, excuse me, for one moment. Cows. There are so many cows going on right now, and so many cows ending and starting, and oh, it's so much fun. I love cows. Let me think here. Where shall I start? Well, let me start by showing you, oh no, a bingo card. So Llama Mama Kayla, which is a YouTube channel. If you haven't heard about Mama Llama Kayla yet, you should go check her out. She's kind of fun to watch. And lots of people are watching. And she is doing this really fun cow. It runs, I believe, all year. And I'm a little late to the party because I'm late to most parties. But she's running a bingo. So this is the March Yarn Bingo, and this is my bingo card. So the whole idea is, as you finish projects, you check to see if you can take a square off your bingo card, and you're trying to get, of course, the classic one-line bingo. She's made it clear that she never intended this to dictate the projects that you do, but rather be something fun. That you sort of look at the project you finished and see where it can fit in. If you're interested in this at all, by all means, go check out her YouTube channel. And then it's sort of a YouTube, Facebook combo type thing in order to participate. But I'm finding this to be a lot of fun. Now, although Kayla did say that she didn't intend this to dictate the direction of your crafting for the month, one of the things that I think this might be useful for is if anybody ever hits a creative block and they just don't know what to do next. They're not feeling inspired. There's no reason why you couldn't look at this and get some inspiration from this. Although I agree, I wouldn't want to use it to sort of dictate where I go, because I'm a little, sporadic, and I jump off into various rabbit holes on a regular basis. But this is a lot of fun. I suggest you take a look at that. So that is a cowl that I am joining into. One of the other big cowls going on right now that I need to talk to you about is the Low Cowl, which is being hosted by Debbie at the Canadian Crocheter and Karen at Happiness is Homemade. They are co-hosting the Low Cowl, which is a cowl based on your location. And that was, first of all, such a clever way to approach a cowl. Such a clever play on words. I love it. And it's getting a lot of attention. So, if you haven't heard about it, you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's one to look at. Now, my cowl, the colorwork cowl, ended at the end of February. Sorry, forgot for a moment what month we were in. Ended at the end of February, and I am not running a cowl for the month of March. However, I will be starting a new cowl 1st of April. So from April 1st to May 31st, I am going to be running an amigurumi create along, because I'm not restricting it to crochet. It can be knitting as well. I am calling all of my alongs create alongs now, because I'd like to include more and more crafting, and not just you know, fiber crafts, not just knitting and crochet. As someone who now has to CrossFit train when it comes to my crafts, I'm sort of, you know, open to allowing other things in there as well. So it is going to be all about amigurumi, which is kind of fun. It will be running for 2 months. There will be 2 Ravelry threads and an Instagram thread. 3 prizes will be drawn at the end. More details to come. But get your thinking caps on. Start planning out some projects. I figured it would be a good time to be doing, you know, maybe some Easter amigurumis, or just spring in general. Yeah, but it can be amigurumis of any sort, of any kind. But yes, so watch this space for upcoming information about the newest cow coming to you from Rabe Creations. So let me see, moving on. Let's move on to some newly acquired pieces. There haven't been a lot. I've been pretty good about going through Stash and using Stash. I'm designing using Stash. I'm trying to use up Stash on a regular basis. And I was able to avoid making too many purchases, which is a good thing. It's good for the pocketbook. So I have made a few trips to Michael's because I did need more yarn for the blanket, the granny square blanket that I'm making, and that's all in impeccable yarns. So I did have to make that purchase, and I did have to purchase more yarn, impeccable yarns for my my ponchos that I'm designing. So those were sort of necessities. I started out designing using Stash, but now I need to, and I started out the blanket project with Stash, and now I need to buy those couple of extra skeins to be able to finish off the projects. However, you know, it wouldn't be me if I didn't buy something. So when I was at Michael's, I happened to notice that the Karen Pantone sets, I want to call them, because it's almost like getting you know 5 mini skeins, and they're just skeined together in a actually very attractive way. I like this linking of the mini skeins. It is a acrylic nylon wool, and I know that not a lot of people have given, you know, this not great reviews based on the pricing. Because I buy so much hand-dyed and handcrafted yarn, it never did seem outrageously priced to me. But I was hesitant to pick it up, and I don't know why. But Karen over at Happiness is Homemade has inspired me to give them a shot. So we do have 2 different colorways here. River Rock, which is this one in sort of the neutral tones, and Blueberry, which is this one in the less neutral tones, more blues. But I think both of these are beautiful, and I've got 2 skeins of each. Well, yeah, because it's not a single skein, it's many skeins. But I bought 2 of each of these colorways, let me put it that way. And I have not decided what I'm going to do with them yet, but Karen, this one's for you. So those are the Karen Pantone, yeah. We've all seen these around Michael's, and they were more expensive than most of the offerings at Michael's tend to be. They are still more expensive in Canada than the US, so the clearance price here is $4.97, and I believe that's a full $1 more than in the States. So yeah, I have 2 new things to experiment with. So as I said before, Karen, this one's for you. You have enabled me. So the only other newly acquired pieces that I got, well, I did buy some fabric, but won't go into that, are some some needle minders. So when you're doing stitch work, like the cross stitch, I don't know how many of you have indulged in such things. You of course have a needle, and you need somewhere to put that needle where it's not constantly falling on the ground. So there are these beautiful little stitch minders out there. So I I ordered a couple of stitch minders. I can't remember who I ordered them from right now. I will link it down below. But it was a Canadian supplier, I know that for sure. And so they're little doohickeys that have strong magnets on the back. So you attach this, let me show you on my project here. You attach it to the Aida cloth or whatever cloth that you're stitching on, with the pretty part to the front and then the magnet to the back. And as you're going along, you can put your needle on here and it'll hold your needle, which is kind of cool. So you don't lose your needles anymore. And they are called stitch minders. So this one, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. I will see about inserting some pictures. But this one is a raven claw symbol. I don't know if that's going to be in focus or out of focus, if you're going to be able to see it at all. But yeah, if it's not a great picture, I will insert some. And then the other one I got is a little mini sugar skull. So yeah, and they both work very well to mind your needles, hence the name Needle Minder. So those are kind of cute and have come in handy in my new stitching adventures. So those are the newly acquired bits and pieces and bits and bobs. So I have one more segment left to go, and that is a shop update. Those of you who have been around for a while know that I do have an Etsy shop. And my Etsy shop has slowly started to move its inventory and be geared towards the maker as opposed to having finished products. There will always be finished pieces in my Etsy shop. Typically, baby blankets is what I do in there, and you know, some hats, some scarves, that sort of thing. But definitely the stock is moving towards products for the maker. And right now I've really been concentrating on project bags. So let me just reach over here and I'm going to grab the newest additions to my Etsy shop. And I just want to say, first off, thank you to everybody who has checked out the shop. Again, as a reminder, if you'd like to be reminded of when new things are put into the Etsy shop, I don't do like big shop updates on specific days or anything. Just as I create, it goes into the Etsy shop. As things sell, I replace it with other things. So if you'd like to get notified of when things are being added to the shop, favor the shop, hit the you know, the liked shops, the favorite shops, and you will get little updates through Etsy of when new things are released in the shop. So first off, my one and only extra large, the jumbo project bag, that is now in the Etsy shop. It has this cute Baba Black Sheep fabric on it. My company logo. It is fully interfaced and lined. Now the jumbo bags are so big, however, that they are not going to stand up on their own unless I was using quilt batting, and then it would, in my opinion, that makes them much too thick and less bag-like and more tote-ish. But yeah, so that is it. It is lined just in plain white. So it's white and black and blue, and it is a drawstring. And as I said, it's one of my jumbo bags, so easily holds, you know, 7 to 10 skeins of yarn. Will hold a sweater project or a blanket project with no problems at all. So I created one of the jumbo bags, and then I have created a whole bunch of my medium-sized project bags. They are by far my most popular bag. So I'll just, you know, go through them one at a time. So there's this one, which is fish bones, black inside. So black and white is the color tone on that one. And again, they all have the cotton rope as the drawstring on them. And they all do have a little handle as well. So fish bones, ladybird beetles with yellow interior. They all are box bottom. A blue flower print with the teal colors, and then it is striped on the inside. You'll notice for the most part the handle color is going to indicate what the interior color is. And then the blue and purple and green with the purple interior. the pink and red and purple with a red interior. Very spring inspired. Lots of florals going on. You can tell I'm starting to get spring fever. This one is kind of a neat floral pattern, a little more stylized with the stripes on the interior. All of the bags are fully lined, and being this size, they will stand up on their own and make great traveling yarn bowls. And then finally, the retro print, 70s mushroom retro print. Now this fabric is kind of unique. It is actually a vintage 70s fabric. It's got the yellow on the inside. It is an inherited fabric from my mother-in-law when she passed. I inherited her fabric collection, and that is an actual 80s vintage fabric. I love it. It's beautiful. All right, so those are the bags that I have currently added into my Etsy shop. I would love for you to come on over, take a look at the shop and see what I have to offer. All right, that's it. That brings us to the conclusion of another episode of the Rabe Creations podcast. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me today. If you've made it through this long, thank you so much. If you like what you've seen, of course, thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. My subscribership is slowly climbing. Thank you, everyone. As of this recording, I believe I was at 335 subscribers. So that is fantastic. Every new person makes me smile, and lets me share my love of crochet and of crafting in general with more and more people. So thank you for coming by. If you think other people might enjoy this, make sure you hit that share button. Let people know what we're doing over here, because I think it's a lot of fun. Let me see. What else have I got to say? I don't know. That's about it, I guess. I think I've hit all of the points I wanted to make. I will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Hopefully some finished projects to show you and some new works in progress. Yeah, other than that, be kind to each other, keep yourself safe, be happy, craft away, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you. Bye-bye.